Now, go ahead. Now I'll kill you. You guinea brat.
One of the great scenes in the movie The Godfather, Carlo, Gianni Russo. And his book is out. You've heard us talk about it all morning long. He'll be on with Jesse Palmer later, Daily Mail. It's in about 30 million households across America. He's done tons of interviews and will do tons more. The name of the book is Hollywood Godfather, My Life in the Movies and the Mob. Gianni Russo walks this walk and talks the talk. What a life, a worthy read. That from Robert De Niro, a guy that admittedly was a mobster, working for Frankie Costello, turned that into an amazing movie career and a big-time celebrity. Still looks like $1 million.
Yes, he does.
Sitting here to my left.
Only $1 million? It's supposed to be a B by now.
Yeah, let's go with $1 billion.
The great Gianni Russo, everybody. Good morning, Johnny. How are you, pal?
Thank you.
Good morning.
I appreciate it.
So, where do you start? I mean, the book mentions everybody from Pablo Escobar to John Gotti to Marilyn Monroe to the Kennedy brothers to Frank Sinatra. But I guess we'll start with this. And it's always a lame but obligatory question. Why now, after all these years, did you decide to write this book?
Well, it's a good question because, as I was just saying, coming up on the elevator, the only one guy that I was still worried about that was alive just died March 7th.
Is that true? Is that really true?
Yeah, Carmine Persico.
Persico, yeah.
Well, I wrote about him in the book.
Yeah.
He was the only guy that's alive. So with that said, the reason why now, I had a meeting about 2 years ago where a major boss, I guess I could tell his name. But anyway, he died, and he said, let the book out.
Let the book out. See, how's a guy like Henry Hill, all those years going on Howard Stern show, going all over.
Well, don't compare me to Howard.
No, but,
Henry Hill, he's a rat.
No, I understand. No. But I'm saying, he was a rat. Everybody wanted him dead. Now, all those guys were in prison or dead already, but there were still some guys alive. He never had any issue going out there, writing books, doing movies, doing radio shows.
Well, I have no issue, but I'm still involved in Sicily. I just do a lot of business.
Okay.
You know, this year I'm doing about $3 billion in importing and exporting with the Greco brothers out of Chicago.
Mm-hmm. Legit.
Oh, totally legit.
Totally legit.
Yeah, but still, when I go over there, those old guys don't stop.
Right. Well, you know, Gianni Russo, just from the beginning, you were born and raised in Little Italy. You had polio. You spent 5 years in Bellevue as a kid, which
the greatest thing that ever happened to me.
But it was horrible to read about that. You were there. Your parents, I don't think they visited you while you were there.
Well, I didn't know that. See, I was so confused because here I am. I went there, was like 7.5 years of age. And nobody came. Like, my birthday's December 12th, same as Sinatra, which changed my life when I heard it on the radio. And but I was quarantined, and they didn't know what was going on with that disease. Because we are kind of short on time, your parents didn't visit. It was terrible. It led you to meet Frank Costello, but the way you learned to walk, I guess, is the amusing part. Dolores. Yes. That's almost sacrilegious because Dolores was a candy striper, and she was Carlo Gambino's niece.
Yeah. No, listen,
and
you were surrounded.
She pulled her shirt down.
Yeah.
And that's how he learned to walk.
Yeah.
He walked over to the fruit. And I thought that was very amusing.
Down on Mulberry Street. Now, your father didn't come visit you, but even if he could, he may not have, because you're talking about your dad in the book that wasn't around much, was living his own life, doing his own thing, and also worked, I guess, with was it Albert Anastasia? Who did your father kind of hang around with?
No, not that he hung around with. They didn't even like him.
Yeah.
But he had a no-show job with Tony Anastasia and the Piers.
Right.
No, but my father, I mean, talking about that, I couldn't say hello to my father unless he acknowledged me first on the street. Because he didn't want people to think he was married and had kids.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
right.
Jeez.
And people think I'm a bad guy.
That's a tough one. And he broke the mold of Italian fathers, as you point out in the book, who are very family-oriented. Your dad was a little bit
Well, there's a lot of those guys in the neighborhood, though. You know, they're real buffoons. They're wannabes. So they walk around like there's somebody or nobody, but out of the respect of certain friends, when they get jobs and they do what they do.
But back then, they were just about everybody in that neighborhood was actually mafioso hooked up. I mean, I was telling Bernie, I went 2 years ago. I moved back from Miami a couple of years ago. And I took my wife and my daughter and my son.
You still have your tan, though. How come?
So we went to the festival, in San Gennaro, and in Little Italy. And I remember that Monday morning, I walked in. I said, "What the hell happened to Little Italy? I mean, what from where you talk?
Blocks.
I know, but when you talk about it from 50 years ago, when you grew up to where it is today, I mean, you see people in Little League today that were never in your neighborhood 50
Oh, my
years ago.
God, yeah. But you know what it was? Everybody that made money, they went to the boroughs.
Yeah.
And then they didn't want to come back to the neighborhood. And the fools that they are and were, they never bought the buildings. That's how they got squeezed out.
Right.
If they bought those buildings, there's very few families that actually own their building. But now the rents down there are ridiculous.
Oh, yeah.
My apartment, that was, I think, $16 in 1949.
In which you
is
lived
$3,000
Yeah.
now.
Wow.
It's craziness.
And you lived in a closet. Your family had you
Yeah.
sleeping in a closet next to a
Well,
kerosene
that's why I'm brain
heater.
dead. I have to sniff
Yeah,
kerosene
yeah,
all the
no,
time.
I know. Listen, the book is The Hollywood Godfather, My Life in the Movies and the Mob. Gianni Russo and Gianni Russo. And Johnny, listen, so let's to further it along, you hooked up with Frank Costello outside a hotel, and it led you to meet Grace Kelly, Ava Gardner, but the pièce de résistance was you were shampooing Marilyn Monroe's hair, and then,
Do you believe that?
other things. I know, that's wild.
No, it's crazy. Well, I was about the fourth head of hair because I had to go to continuation school, and they put me in Wilford Academy. And I'm saying to Frank, what'd you put me in there for? I don't want to grow up to be a hairdresser.
Yeah.
And then as soon as I showed up that morning, I saw all these young chicks. I was just like a candy store. I said, I love this school.
Nice.
And then they came in for Shampoo Boys for Lily Daché, a big salon on 56th and Park. And Kenneth it was, and Mark Sinclair. And I think they were trying to do me. But the thing is that fourth head of hair, Marilyn Monroe. I couldn't believe it.
Well, and you say you say that you had done a 5-year stint at a university jail, and when you got out, she gave you a hug, talking about Marilyn Monroe,
Right.
and you said what you loved most about her, I guess besides her ass, was that she was childlike. She was like a little kid. That's what you loved about her, right?
No, not only that. I mean, this girl, all she wanted was a hug, too. We
Yeah.
had a lot of comparisons.
That's not all she wanted, Johnny.
Well, no, I found that out
They
later.
slept together. Didn't you sleep together when you were 15?
Yeah.
You spent the weekend with her in a bed.
That wasn't the only time, though. It was a couple times.
Right.
Oh, no, many times after that.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I got to know her as a friend, but that's who she was. That's why so many guys, and, it took years later, Marlon Brando's talking to me about it while him and I got close.
Yeah.
And I smiled a little, and he says, don't tell me you were there.
Yeah.
So he says, tell me one thing. If you were really there, I would know. I said, you're talking about the scar on the left side of her leg?
Unbelievable.
See? I told you.
Unbelievable. Now, you also have a theory of how she died, right? How did Marilyn Monroe die?
No, I haven't.
You do. Come on.
No, it's a process of elimination. It's not. It's more than a theory.
Okay, so what is it? What's the answer?
I was always the eyes and ears after the Appalachian, that whole fiasco. Costello would never go to these things, but he had to have somebody go. So he always sent the kid. I was known as the kid for so many years. Again, not knowing he was protecting me. I said, "Why don't you introduce him?" He said, "No. You don't want people. You don't want people to know who you are." And that's why even in the picture of Marilyn Monroe, and I think it's in the book, I turned my head. He always said, "Don't be on camera."
Right.
Doesn't it remind you a little bit, by the way, Bernie, of Sonny and the kid in Charles Palminteri's A Bronx
He
Tale?
does.
The kid, and you always wanted to protect
That's right.
him, and
That's right.
kind of like you and Frankie Costello, right?
Well,
Very similar.
That was made up, though.
Right, I understand. right.
And speaking of,
Maybe they saw my story first.
Right.
now, when you get to this Marilyn Monroe thing, prior to that, Kennedy got elected, and the mob guys were mad.
Well, the whole idea when Joe approached Frank
Sinatra, who were friends with.
Well, somewhat.
Yeah.
He was another strange dude.
But in other words, they thought he was going to be friendly towards the mob, and he ends up hiring his brother Bobby, and they were anything but friendly to the mob. So they had.
He didn't realize. I don't think him and his son, Joe, didn't. How much
the
Bobby
dad.
hated their whole lifestyle.
Yeah.
Because Bobby was the last kid, and mother was like, what they did to that poor mother, the father. He'd bring women home.
Sure.
And those boys at 16. On their 16th birthday, he had somebody there, make him a man. In their house.
Wow.
Right.
And this guy was nuts. But the good news was he was so close to Costello, they made $30 million each during Prohibition.
Wow.
They were partners in Prohibition.
So you were telling us that so Costello would not want to go to these things. He would send you. Getting back to how you think Marilyn Monroe died.
She was helping set up the Kennedys.
What
and
they wanted to
what
do
this
was
is
like
about.
they did to Jimmy Hoffa. They took pictures of Jimmy Hoffa years prior to this because he was a cross-dresser. And he would always denounce the mafia until the Kefauver Commission. And so they thought They didn't get what they wanted. They're going to blackmail the Kennedys because they were supposed to get Cuba back. They promised if John became president, they'd invade Cuba, give them all the casinos back, and everybody's a win-win.
Right.
Bobby comes in. He's not going for it. He convinced his brother there's no missiles on that island. We're not going. So we got nothing. Not we, but I mean the mob got nothing, and that's what this was about. They thought they'd get Marilyn, Bobby, and John one more time together, take the pictures. The mistake Marilyn made on Saturday night, I was outside the bungalow hearing a scream. So I'm going to the press. She's done with the Kennedy brothers. She told Bobby that to his face. And that was it, man.
So how'd they do it? They shot her with something? You know?
So 3 days later, she died, and you surmised that they killed
you know why? I could tell you
they
why.
shot something in her pubes or something?
Yeah, no, not air. That's all.
Air.
They injected air.
There was a guy, they called him the doctor for a lot of reasons. He was an anesthesiologist, but I think failed the test.
Oh.
And all he did was in the pubic hairs, you couldn't see the puncture marks.
Wow.
And in that area, like even a man, the fallopian organ, because I wanted to be an assassin, so I learned how to do that early on.
It's good to have
I cleaned up my act.
1-800-848-WABC. So much more to get to, including how you end up on the set of The Godfather, all your other relationships. It's already been a fascinating 10 minutes. Don't go anywhere, I should say. More with Dr. Gianni Russo right after these words.
Bernie and Sid in the morning.
Gianni Russo is here. Hollywood Godfather is the book, My Life in the Movies and the Mob. We just spent 10 minutes talking about a bunch of fascinating stories, including the Kennedys and Marilyn Monroe. Let's get to the important stuff. We'll get to Gotti and Pablo Escobar and Frank Sinatra,
and of course the biggest crime of the century.
Right, but we want to get to how, in fact, you ended up on the set, because without the Godfather, Johnny, quite frankly, you wouldn't be here. So how do you get up on the set?
You got that right.
Yeah. So how do you get up on
on
the set of the Godfather? And then you can tell the story, of course, about how Marlon Brando wasn't thrilled you were there, asked you a ton of questions, and in the end, you guys turned out to be very, very good friends.
Well, what happened was my ego. I was like 25 years of age, and the book just came out.
Mario
Puzo's book. In fact, it came out in 1969. It's the 50th anniversary now. So I had someone read it to me, and I always wanted to be an actor, and then they had something in the paper they were going to use unknowns. So I figured this is my shot. So I hired a crew. I shot a scene for Michael, a scene for Sonny, a scene for Carlo, and submitted it to Paramount. Then I get a letter saying, sorry we misled you. We know you spent some dollars on this. And then I read that Joe Colombo was picketing the FBI building, and he's don't want this movie made. So I figured this is my shot, because I know Joe. It's always about the buck. And they were selling stupid lapel buttons, $1 a button, red, white, and green pile. So I go to see him in Brooklyn. I said, Joe, you're missing a great opportunity here. He said, how? I said, why don't you take the meeting with them? Because at the time there was a young attorney, still my attorney, Barry Schlotnick. I said, Barry comes with you. I'll arrange it. And I didn't know if I could. I said, I'll arrange it. We'll go to the Gulf and Western building, which is the Trump and the Columbus Circle. And what you're going to ask for, if you are happy, let them shoot the movie, then you'll have the world premieres in every major city. You could charge $100 a ticket. That's how the whole thing got done.
Yeah.
But they went there. They fought for certain things, obviously. They didn't want to say WAP and Guinea. And
but the Italians were upset. Yeah. They were starting there were fights, and they even outside the studios, they made a very big deal about it.
They made a big deal out of
it.
Yeah,
that was Colombo's whole thing. It was the Italian-American pride. And,
what's it called? American, Italian, and Defamation League.
Right.
But he was picketing the FBI building. He got called downtown on one Sunday and told him, what are you, crazy? This is a secret organization. And he's picking in the FBI building.
And sadly, he was dead within a year of that, a year or two, I think.
That's funny because the next rally 1 year later, the second rally at Columbus Circle, I get a call from Tommy Bilotti, who was like my best man in 2 weddings, not one.
He was, of course, Paul Castellano's limo driver, gunned down outside of Sparks by John Gotti.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And so he said, are you going to that rally? I said, yeah. He said, you can't go. I said, what are you talking about? I'm on the dais. He said, you're not going. And I was staying at the Park Lane, even though my apartment was on 61st. I wanted to stay where all the stars would come out every morning, everybody taking pictures of you. So I went out the back door on 58th Street, took the N train down to Canal Street. I'm sitting at Angelo's restaurant, and I hear that he was shot. That created another big problem. I didn't get into it in the book.
Yes.
Because when they saw the investigation photos, my seat had my name on it, and I wasn't the only guy not sitting
That's
in
wild. And so, but you had a prior word, obviously.
Well, I didn't know what it was.
You got a sort of a heads up to stay the hell away because
That's all
something's
they
going
said.
down.
Yeah.
Anyway,
so basically, because you intervened, though, between what was going on with the Italians and the movie, that almost secured you a spot in the film because you intervened. That got you the gig.
Yeah, because when we had the meeting the next day, my deal I told Joe, I said, we get this on. I want to play Michael, Sonny, or Carlo. I didn't know.
Right.
So they let me know that this is interesting. You may not know this. I said, well, who's playing Michael? They said, Sonny. I mean, who's playing Michael? James Caan. James Caan was playing Michael first.
Really?
Carmine Caridi was playing Sonny because he was in a play called The Man from La Mancha, and they thought it should be this big guy, which Carmine was. And Francis Coppola wanted Pacino. At that time, he only did one movie called Panic in Needle Park, and he fought for him, and they moved Michael, James Caan, to play Sonny, which was the smaller role, which Jimmy was pissed at that.
Right.
And then I got in this movie, and I never did anything in my life, which was what you're talking about, the rehearsal with Brando.
Right.
That was nuts.
Well, he asked you, he said, what have you done on theater? What movies have you been in? All these questions. You had no answers, of course, because you had no experience. And then you kind of let him know. Maybe you should back off just a little bit, Marlon.
Well, you know what? No, I'll tell you why. Because he called Francis over, and he broke down the whole script. I never broke down the script. I don't even know what I was doing there. And he said, his guy's got to be a great actor. He undermines my family. He marries my daughter. He breaks it all down.
Kills my son.
And I'm seeing he's trying to talk me out of this role. So I don't know, again, protocol on the script. I said, Francis, go over there a minute. But you can't dismiss the director. The guy's in charge even in the rehearsal. Yeah. And then I did the next sacrilege. I put my arm around Brando, and I walked him because they had the rehearsal on 119th Street at Patsy's in Harlem.
Right.
That Tony Solero's joint.
He says he put his arm around Brando. Bernie, same thing with Imus. Imus. They were told, don't look at him. Oh, yeah. Don't make any eye contact with Marlon Brando. Same thing.
But the rules didn't apply necessarily to Gianni Russo.
Well, no, the only reason was I'm ready to go out the door. This guy's going to get me fired. Yeah. I just had a party like a couple of nights before, and everybody said, get out of here. You're not in this movie. Get out. How are you going to be in this movie?
Right.
And now this guy's getting me fired. Now I really look like an idiot.
Well, good for you.
So then I took him to the side, and it was very funny. And I did it whispering, which I think was more menacing, I guess, because I didn't want everybody to hear
it. Now, so it's like real.
Okay. I said, let me just tell you something, okay?
Yeah.
I know who you are. You're a big actor. You screw this up for me, I will suck on your heart. You understand what I'm telling you?
Oh. I love it.
And he goes,
I feel it now.
That was great acting.
No, then he stepped back.
Yeah.
He stepped back and he's looking at me. I don't know if the guy was going to call a cop. What are you going to do?
That's great.
He said, that was great. You could do this, Paul.
Yeah.
And they're like, I wasn't acting.
And by the way, you nailed it right there. But listen, the book is Hollywood Godfather. We're talking to Gianni Russo. He played Carlo, of course, in The Godfather. And I got to mention a couple of book signings. This week, Wednesday, Bookends Bookstore, Ridgewood, New Jersey, 7 o'clock on Thursday. At the Barnes & Noble, 86 in Lexington. And then next week, Eastchester, Barnes & Noble. And the week after that, Book Review in Huntington, folks. So look it up. But I got to ask you this question, Gianni Russo.
Please.
You were instrumental, according to you in the book, in the assassination of John F. Kennedy.
No, don't say that.
No. Well,
No.
Listen,
I was a messenger. I didn't know what I was delivering.
Right,
I knew it was money. I did that all the time. But that's all I did, and I didn't know. If I knew the target, I loved John Kennedy. I hung out with him.
You were an inadvertent player.
Yeah.
And you went from...
I'm glad you cleaned that up.
You delivered you delivered a message from a mob boss in New Orleans.
Carlos Marcellus, yeah.
Marcellus, that's right, up to Frank Costello. And
everywhere.
And the message was, it's on.
That was it.
And
imagine flying all those nights.
Right.
And he had a big dish of pasta vongole bianco. He knows I like it.
Yeah.
And he says... You're not sitting down. And I said, okay.
Yeah. So he gave you $30,000 and get the hell out of here.
No, I gave it to him.
Oh, you gave it to him?
And he gave me the message.
Okay, so for everybody who thinks Lee Harvey Oswald, blah, 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 you're here to say...
He was one of the shooters, though.
He was one of the shooters.
Right.
But it was a mob hit. It was not...
It was mob hit, and I'll tell you something else you ain't going to believe.
Right.
And
I believe... I've always thought San Giacomo killed him.
But CIA was involved, too.
I believe that, too.
And Lyndon Baines Johnson brought him to the target.
Lyndon Baines Johnson brought him.
Hey, I wouldn't be surprised if DiMaggio was in on it too. What the hell? But the point is, though, that it was done by the mob, and then they put you on a boat. You had seen Lee Harvey Oswald in New Orleans in this meeting.
By mistake. He was in the bathroom.
And then the next time you saw him was on the boat when you were heading off to Spain.
Newspaper.
Under the Verrazano Narrows Bridge. You saw him arrested as everybody was, it was televised.
That was the
nationwide.
next day, actually.
That's right. And that's how you knew what you had done.
And then who hired Jack Ruby?
Jack Ruby always worked for the mob out of Chicago.
Always.
He was running all their stuff in Texas. So and you know what most people don't know? After that, 73 other people were killed. Anybody that was involved, that's why Costello got me out of the country.
Right. Yeah, that's right.
Wow.
Actually, they mentioned that in the movie that Kevin Costner did. Let's take a short break, come back, a little more time. We'll hit on Sinatra, Pablo Escobar, call it a day. Hollywood Godfather, Gianni Russo. We're coming right back.
Bernie and Sid in the morning.
Gianni Russo, Hollywood Godfather, My Life in the Movies and the Mob. Tweet blowing up at Sid Rosenberg, at Bernie and Sid. 40 minutes of amazing radio. Let's get to Frank. You wanted to sing. Next thing you know, you're in your bathing suits together. He's giving you the same advice that Tommy Dorsey, according to you in the book, gave him, which is expand your lungs. You got to breathe. And the next thing you know, Johnny Russo's the next Bobby Vinton, right? That's it.
No way. I like Bobby, though.
Yeah.
No, I got lucky with that. The good news is what I've tried to do and wanted to do in my life, I was privileged to do it.
Well, how'd you get to meet Sinatra in the first place? How did that whole thing get set up?
Well, the first year I was in the hospital, the first 4 or 5 months, my birthday's December 12th. So I hear on the radio, today's Frank Sinatra's birthday. That gave me some hope because they broke it all down. It's an Italian-American, Hoboken, and I needed something. Sure. And 3 or 4 years later, because of my association with Costello, I'm hearing him do a sound check at the Copa. So he's seeing this kid walk around, and they said, no, he's all right, he's with us. And then later on, I said, I got to tell you a story, because he figured you talk to me now. Who's this kid? And I told him, I said, you're the reason I'm alive today.
Wow.
And he said, what are you talking about? And I told him the story. He teared up.
Wow. Okay.
And we stayed friends.
How about that?
And, but he's a strange guy to be a friend with.
Yeah, a miserable guy, too.
Oh,
no doubt about it. Speaking of which, you don't like John Gotti Sr., not only because he screwed you with Pablo Escobar, but because he was a big mouth and he was.
Not that I didn't like him. He didn't he was always about this thing of ours that he was always talking about, and he broke all the rules.
Yes, he did. Drugs.
Right. And everything. Not only that, he made his son.
Yeah.
He had his son made. His mother's Jewish. How could he be made?
But he bought me once a drink at Regine, so I was like,
well,
yeah, he did.
It's unacceptable.
I probably sent you a bottle of Cristal. He had 500 of them in the basement. Everybody would send him a Cristal to be friends with him.
Yeah.
It's the only reason Regime stayed in. When he went to jail, he had to close.
No, it's true. He was there. I swear to God, I was there a couple of times. I saw him every time I was there. There, and when Frankie Panisse, I know you know him, and Claire, they own La Mer in Brooklyn. Right. They opened up a restaurant across the street from the track in Hollywood, in Hallandale, in Florida. Right. Celebrity Cafe, and John was always there. He always buy. He was very, very buying stuff for everybody. Always very good like that.
Nice guy.
A nice guy.
The only thing I like about John, you could win a lot of money with him betting against him.
Right, he lost every week. I know.
Hey, John, and Steve Sharip is a friend of ours. He was there the night you shot the Pablo Escobar guy.
Yeah, I used to hire all the kids. While he was going to UNLV, I had a lot of those guys, and the size of Steve.
Yeah.
And he was petrified of the guy. And I hired them to go over there, and I ain't going over there. So then I went over, but he was there tonight. I shot the guy between the eyes.
Yeah.
He couldn't believe it.
That was self-defense, though. It was fun.
Oh, no, definitely.
Yeah. The guy was hassling a woman, and he cut you in the chin.
He stabbed the lady in the face with a Cristal bottle.
Right.
And then slit my throat.
And I can still see the scar right there.
I got 100-something stitches.
Look at you, huh?
God, you got some story, Gianni Russo, to tell. And don't forget, folks, bookends Wednesday night, Ridgewood, New Jersey, 6 o'clock, and Barnes & Noble in New York City, 86th and Lexington at 7 o'clock on Thursday.
Right.
So how many people are going to die now because of this book, John?
I don't know.
And you don't care.
I got an armored truck downstairs.
Gianni Russo. The book is he's a great guy. Hollywood Godfather. Man, can he tell a story? My Life in the Movies and the Mob. Gianni Russo. And you had help with Patrick Piccarelli, who's, by the way, wrote a book about Jimmy the Wags, who I know, personally. Bo Dietl's, one of Bo Dietl's guys. Right. But anyway, Hollywood Godfather, folks, what a read, man. You're like the Forrest Gump of the mob and of politics and of entertainment. It's unbelievable.
I'm glad I lived long enough to write the book.
I'm glad you did, too. You look great. You sound great. Gianni Russo, Hollywood Godfather. Thanks for appearing.
No, thank you, guys.
On the Bernie and Sid Show. We appreciate you, and we're coming right back, folks.
She